Good morning. My name is Hilmar, Veigar Pétursson, and I'm gonna here talk a little bit about virtual reality and what we are doing right now in it, and what I have been doing in it for almost 2 decades now. So I come from a company called CCP, which is founded in 1997 in Iceland. So we're almost turning 20 years old, which is getting to be quite an old for a company in the industry to be under the same name doing the same thing for that long. I come from a country called Iceland, which usually has this image etched in your mind. It's a country full of ice. Right now, actually, Iceland is warmer than Finland. It was 10 degrees Celsius before I came here. So that's an interesting sign of global warming. Iceland is also very famous for its volcanoes, which I'm sure has disrupted your air travel at some point. Currently, we have a really pretty one going on, a nice little tourist volcano. Iceland is also very famous for its, what should I say, economic experiments. We have gone through many cycles and experimented with currency and currency controls and those kind of things. If you have played EVE Online or read about EVE Online, I'm sure you can see some of the inspiration of how we manage the economy of EVE come from the fact that we have seen our government run many experiments on ourselves as a nation. And out of that, we have kind of taken a lot of learning and brought it into EVE Online. EVE Online is something that got started in 2003. And it is something we call a virtual world. Even though it's currently not experienced in virtual reality, we very much believe that what EVE Online has created is a virtual world that we can greatly enhance with virtual reality. So what I'm going to talk here today is a little bit why to do virtual reality. And a lot of it is built on just things I believe, because there is not a lot of facts and figures currently that support people going and investing heavily into VR, because currently there's nothing really out yet. But we are a strong believer in that this is going to be really big, and it's going to change gaming and life as we know it. We actually have Ollie coming after me, who's talking more about how to do virtual reality, but I'm going to focus a bit on the why and why I think it's going to be important. This is something that we wrote down in 2008 for CCP. There is a famous book by Jim Collins called From Good to Great, and it talks about companies having a core purpose. And this we wrote down as the core purpose of CCP is to make virtual worlds more meaningful than life. And that is a bit of a crazy proposition for people that look at games as a logical construct. Games are full of textures and polygons and code, etc. But us who have grown up with games and played way too much of them, we know that games are actually much more about emotions. Games, even though appearing to be logical constructs, are creations that evoke very strong emotions, probably one of the strongest any digital media can provoke. And I'm sure if you have tried virtual reality like I did, this is a picture of me experiencing our first VR project back in 2003. And I have what I think is fondly called the notch pose, out of the sheer wonder of seeing what the experience can be when you're fully engulfed in it. I actually began my career in doing this very early. There was a company in Iceland, founded actually as early as '92, whose mission was to make virtual worlds. And that company was very much a part of what is called the VRML revolution. VRML, or virtual reality modeling language, was supposed to be the HTML of the 3D internet. And here is something that we created back in '96 called Oz Virtual, where you could go and fly into a space station and you can dance in a bar. This was very much inspired by Neil Stephenson, so you see the street there. This was probably 30 years too early. Not only didn't we have the VR hardware, but even just 3D cards and proper internet wasn't available. So we actually, a group of us that were at that company, went and founded CCP. And CCP had the mission to take all this knowledge that we have learned from doing VRML into doing something practical, like a computer game. And EVE Online was our first creation. Here's a picture of me playing EVE Online when it came out, 2003. And I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story to maybe better explain why we believe that computer games are more about emotion than logic. And as you see there, I have a little baby in my hands. This is my daughter, Eva, who is very proud of the fact she's named after a computer game. And we're playing EVE Online there together. And EVE Online, of course, was a crazy creation for all of us at CCP. We were 30 people in Iceland. We had never made a game before. We hadn't even met anyone that had made a game. So we were such an outlier in the industry, and we were doing this crazy game called EVE. It took 3 years of craziness to make. We actually ran out of money half the way through it. We had to work without salary. We had to sell shares to pay the rent, and all those wonderful things start to go through to get something amazing done. And here I am, basically trying to play the game for the first time. And if you are familiar with EVE Online, then you might know that it's a game of infinite spaceships. You basically buy a small spaceship, you mine minerals, and you want to buy a bigger spaceship. And then you want to join corporations and join a mission to conquer the world. And when it came out, it was a very ambitious dream. And sort of 30,000 people joined us in that dream. And I remember from playing it for the first time is that I get hit by the learning curve of EVE Online, even though I made it. And it took me, myself, a while to really figure out what the game is about. And it wasn't really until I had gone through the cycle of dreaming about a large spaceship, buying it, losing it, and losing my emotions completely at my own computer game that I really figured out what EVE is about. And this, you've probably read about all the passion that goes on in EVE. In 2011, we frankly didn't do a good job of managing the game. We introduced virtual goods into EVE Online in a rather primitive way, and there were riots in the street. So this is the most popular solar system in EVE Online called Jira. When we introduced this and we didn't do a good enough job of it, there were protests in EVE Online. So 3,000 people did a kind of an Occupy Wall Street of shooting at a monument inside the game to get CCP to change their ways. Very much like you see in movements like Occupy Wall Street, when the people of a real world, and in this case our virtual world, are not happy with its development, they go and protest in mass. It's actually, we have left a monument inside the game as a result of this event. So if you now go into EVE Online, you see the statue that they were shooting at is now broken as a result of the protest that went on in the game. I'm sure you also read about various news stories. This one was running in January last year, where $300,000 worth of spaceship equipment got lost in a massive war inside EVE Online. And we know this because there's a bit of an exchange between the money in EVE Online and the money in real life. So we know kind of the value of the items that get destroyed in the game. So the game is very much about creating items and destroying items, very much like our own economy. And usually when these kind of news stories breaks, we get a massive spike in interest in the game. Here we see about 15,000 people join EVE Online in one day as a result of all the PR about the destruction of items in EVE. Again, there is now a monument to this effect. If you go to a certain solar system inside EVE Online, you see basically the ruined battlefield of this massive battle. And this is something that we try to do a good job as the kind of the operators of EVE Online, is to sort of represent the history and all that. There are many famous internet politicians that have born their career basically in EVE Online. Here's one very famous one, the Mitani. He's actually a lawyer in real life, and he's an extremely famous person inside EVE Online. We have an annual fan event where people come to Iceland to meet each other, and usually when he comes there, he has more press interviews than I do, because what he does in EVE Online is more important than what I do. As I explain to people, I am not the god of EVE Online, I'm basically the janitor. Here's a famous guy, another one written an extremely good story about him in PC Gamer. He spent a year infiltrating a corporation, gaining their trust, and then cutting the company from the inside in a very sort of inspired hostile takeover move. We have had people that have changed their own bodies because of EVE Online. Here's a guy, a bit chubby. Here's what he looks today. He was so inspired by the person he plays in EVE Online that he changed his own being to be more like the character he plays. We have, of course, had endless amount of tattoos and babies. We have people gotten married because of EVE Online meeting, and there's a lot of love and creation that goes on in this massive space opera. We call our sort of high-end users our co-creators. That's really what becomes the core experience of EVE Online, is what all our amazing users do. And we've had millions of people that have gone through EVE Online and participated in these amazing space adventures over the past 11 years. We've actually been harvesting the stories. We run a crowdsourcing website where people can submit their own EVE stories. And we did a data mining of their stories. And this is the sort of word cloud I showed in the beginning. When the players of EVE Online talk about what they do in the game, this is the emotion that comes out. EVE Online is a game about courage, trust, betrayal, aspiration, envy. It's a game that creates all these fundamental emotions. And we go to the point of saying EVE is real. And if you are an EVE player, you very much accept the fact that your internet spaceship has as much meaning to you as your car. Your car takes you places, is a vehicle to go and meet your friends. Similar with your internet spaceship takes you around the world, you meet your friend, you conquer world domination. And a pretty sort of core premise of this is that death is a serious matter. Losing your item in EVE Online is very much the foundation of the experience. Everything that can be created can be destroyed. It's all made by real people, and it's all destroyed by real people. And what we have sort of gone into is to analyze what really goes on. And I have here Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Maslow's hierarchy of needs basically organizes society and our needs into sort of several spheres. And the most bottom one is sort of safety, housing, food, sort of the core essentials. And at the top of the pyramid, we have what is called self-actualization. And it's very much what I think of the players of EVE Online, is that they have self-actualized through playing the game. Unfortunately, playing the game is rather difficult. Here's a picture of the learning curve of EVE Online. And to get to the point, and I'm going to skip ahead here a little bit, is that what we think VR does is that it makes something rather obscure like EVE Online extremely accessible. So once you strap on your Oculus Rift or your VR headset of choice, you really get the point that you are in a virtual world and everything that goes on there is real. So we've basically taken the learning cliff of EVE Online, distilled it down to something that even little kids can play. And if you try to put a kid in front of EVE Online, that won't go very far. But some of our best Valkyrie players, which is our sort of VR version of EVE Online, are children. And even though VR has a long way to go, currently there's a lot of investment and experimentation in the field, we believe that once we've done that, we will be able to realize this vision of creating virtual worlds more meaningful than real life. Thank you.